I now call the Carroll County Board of Commissioners Thursday, October 28th work session to order. First on our agenda is we have Jacqueline Dost, our solid waste manager, to do an update for us since we started, I guess, this new position July 1st.
119 days ago, and I appreciate this opportunity. I'm going to let you get to know me a little bit before I go into all the wonderful things that I've been able to do since I began my position. I'm a native Canadian where the 3 R's are reduce, reuse, recycle, and I've lived in Carroll County since 1997. My late husband was the executive sent here to convert Douglas and Lomason to Magna and Lomason. I used to joke about he was sent to magnify the plant. I have a degree in public policy and administration from York University in Toronto. I'm the daughter of European immigrant parents, both of whom were entrepreneurs and started and owned multiple businesses over the course of my career. I currently run a successful social selling business as well as a real estate investment company alongside my 2 adult children. Speaking of which, I have 2 sons, both are graduates of Carrollton High School and are now scientists. Tyler, my oldest, is a chemist and a medical researcher currently pursuing his PhD. He lives north of Boston and is engaged to be married next August. Patrick, my youngest, is a founding member of the internationally acclaimed Carrollton High School ROV team, a second-generation Carroll County Master Gardener, and is using his biology degree in his dream job. He certifies organic farms around the country. If my name seems familiar to some of you, it's because I was the executive director of Keep Carroll Beautiful, the local certified Keep America Beautiful affiliate, for over a decade. I was very fortunate to partner with Charles Pope and Carroll County government on many projects throughout my time there. I retired from that position in 2016 after growing that from a part-time role overseeing a budget of $17,000 annually to managing a staff of 2 and my full-time role with a budget of over $130,000. I have a deep sense of pride in my community. My family and I have always been very active in organizations like the Carroll County Master Gardeners, various garden clubs, and Habitat for Humanity. I was also selected as the Chamber of Commerce Woman of the Year and Ambassador of the Year. I was very excited when I heard that the Board of Commissioners was funding a position to oversee the solid waste department. Working with Charles has always been a dream of mine. I am honored to use my skills as a business person and my love of the environment and this community to work for this board. I've been hard at work this first 119 days. In addition to overseeing the staff at the transfer station, currently 4 employees and 2 inmates with 1 vacancy that we are currently interviewing to fill, I also manage the sites of the 10 county-operated convenience centers. I have met with the environmental agency we contract with to monitor the post-closure at the former landfill and will have my first meeting with the EPD tomorrow at 10 a.m. I've had 2 meetings with GFL, who we currently contract with to haul from the convenience centers to the transfer station and from the transfer station to the landfill in Polk County. I've overseen my first construction project for the county. We added an exterior bathroom to the side of the transfer station for the inmates and the public to use. This eliminated the need for a rented porta potty. Along with Public Works, we are working on plans to renovate the Temple Convenience Center and installing compactors there like the Noonan Road and Dyer Road centers. We hope to begin those updates this winter. That site is currently not efficiently laid out. There is only 1 driveway, which means that traffic entering and exiting use the same gate. The new center will enter on Old Villa Rica Road and exit on Taylor Gin Road. This center also uses many front-end loader cans, which contribute to the trash that accumulates on the gravel surfaces that is difficult to maintain. It is the center we receive the most complaints about. In partnership with Keep Carroll Beautiful, we also once again recycle glass at the Dyer Road and the Noonan Road convenience centers. We will also add this in at Temple once renovations are complete. Why is this important? It saves the county money. Glass is heavy, inert, and easy to recycle. By keeping it out of the waste stream, the county does not pay to haul it to the landfill where it will just remain in perpetuity. Our citizens are excited to recycle glass again. The more options we offer for recycling, the more our citizens will use our centers. The more they recycle, the more we divert from the landfill and save the county funds, as well as do what's best for the future of our environment. I'm also pleased that with the cooperation of Public Works, we now recycle all the cardboard that comes through our building. This was an easy place to start recycling in county buildings, and with a commodity that generates revenue for us. I hope to expand recycling in other buildings over time. I am also pleased to report that we are once again receiving revenue for several of our streams of recycling: metal, cardboard, and mixed paper. These have added over $8,000 per month to the general fund for the last several months, and we hope to add revenue from plastics in the future. I take the business of managing the enterprise fund at the transfer station, as well as the convenience center operations, very seriously. I operate them both as a business, carefully watching the income as well as the expenses for the benefit of the taxpayers that we are all responsible to. My work around the convenience centers accounts for about 40% of my time. I visit the centers regularly to monitor conditions, work on improving signage, make sure the buildings are maintained, and observe the contracted employees. I wish to express my appreciation to the board for your support and to my fellow county employees who have been so gracious and answer all my questions and help me to be successful in my position on a daily basis. I welcome any questions you might have at this time. I know I talk fast, it's a Canadian thing.
We're glad to have you on board. I know Charles was glad to be relieved of that direct responsibility. It was a big one, so we appreciate that. And I appreciate our conversation the other day. I just wanted to make you aware of three things that I've heard over time. Of course, I use the Lowell Recycling Center, and of course others are in my district like Whitesburg and so on. But one of the things that sometimes when I pull in Lowell there, the folks will come up to my truck and we'll talk for 15 minutes. I do enjoy that, so there's a little bit of pleasure in taking off the trash. But one of the things that has happened there in the past, and again, I don't know how prevalent these things are throughout the whole system, but it seems like fences, I guess by neighboring folks or folks that might drive there after hours or whatever, they tear down the fence and they go after metal in order to recycle it and benefit themselves. So Charles got the fence repaired and so on, and I appreciate that, but it seems to be a recurring problem there, at least. So I guess
It's a recurring problem everywhere.
Okay. Well,
It's part of why I spend time going to the convenience centers, showing my face at random times. You can't predict when I'm going to go to where. I don't even know from week to week where I'm going to go when, just because I need to mix it up in my head, so I don't always go to Lowell on Tuesday and Holly Springs on Wednesday. So
Yeah.
I do that, but it is a concern because metal is valuable.
Yeah.
And short of providing internet at every site and heavy-duty
Right.
cameras, there's really not a lot we can do. I mean, the sheriff's department is aware and they patrol, but deputies can't be everywhere at all times either. So it is a sad state of affairs that people will tear down a fence because literally they're getting $20, $30, $40 worth of metal. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like they're getting thousands of dollars worth of commodities.
Yeah. Two more complaints.
Go ahead.
No, one of the things that was discussed with me was sometimes large trucks or a truck with a trailer will pull in there and just dump mega amounts of trash and fill up the recycling bins that are supposed to be there for residents. And when the attendant goes to try to stop it, they get met with a lot of anger, and of course we do appreciate the sheriff deputies, but they're not always within a half mile where they can scoot over there. So the complaint to me has been that sometimes they feel helpless because they're alone and they can't stop what shouldn't be going on, and it fills up the bins for the residents, and then that's a problem. So just FYI, I don't know what.
It is a problem with trash. We do try to encourage, but again, the attendants are contracted employees. They are not contracted with Carroll County. And so they have a little bit of authority, as much authority as they actually want to exercise, but not a lot. And they are encouraged to encourage drivers like that, especially with trash, to take it to the transfer station. But again, if they're dumping in Lowell, I would rather they dump it at the convenience center in Lowell than stop outside the gate and dump it on the side of the road.
Right.
And if they're dumping recycling, bring it, because like I said, that generates revenue. So we're excited if people recycle, but I totally get it. And again, it's one of those things that but I will say, like, generally what I've learned so far in my tenure is the commercial haulers want to go to the transfer station. It's a much more convenient process. In most cases, if they have a dump trailer, they can just dump that instead of hand tossing bags off, and it's just a lot easier. And yes, it costs a little bit of money, but it's a much more efficient process. So it's probably, if it is a commercial entity, honestly, if they have Carroll County plates, we really, even us, we don't have jurisdiction to stop them from doing it. We can encourage them to not do it, but there's really not, again, short of having a deputy at every convenience center, every hour it's open, there's not a lot we can do about that.
Yeah, and like you say, it is better than dumping it beside the road. I've called Charles a couple times, Hutchinson Ferry Road, just a whole bunch of carpet and mat and stuff out there, 15 feet off the road, and it's just terrible.
Yep.
But,
I often will pull into, when I go to the transfer station, Symington Road isn't open every day, the convenience center there, and I will often pull in there, and there's a few bags of trash in front of the gate, and I just stop and throw it in the back of my truck. The guys have me armed. I've got gloves and a shovel and a broom now, so that if I have to stop and pick up, I do, and just dump it in the transfer station. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is it a
Thank you.
requirement to put both wheels on those scales?
Yeah.
It is.
It is, honest. I promise you. We watch you, Tommy, don't you worry.
I just want to say, the Temple station that you're talking about that's going to be converted to the trash compactor, that's something that we had voted on some funds a while back, and I know that's in Commissioner Lee's district, but I have a lot of constituents that utilize that facility. And it's amazing, if you go to one where there's the individual dumpsters, it's hard to keep all that trash in them, and you've got cars constantly backing up and holding up the driveway, and it's a much cleaner and smoother process at all of our facilities that have the compactors. So I'm really looking forward, and I know my constituents are, to that project being completed.
I'm not sure who's looking forward to it more, your constituents or me. Charles and Danny, not so much so, because I'm going to put them to work, but yeah, it's part of the broken windows theory too. Trash begets trash, so people tend not to care for that site as much just because it's not in good repair, and we work as hard as we can with those contracted employees, but they only do so much too, and because of the nature of those front-end loading cans, they're the worst for dumping trash. So I promise you that this time next year, we're going to sit back and say, ooh, this looks so good. So.
I have heard that some of the Heard County people are bringing trash over because they charge them for a ticket to dump their trash down there, and they're bringing it to our dumpsters.
We try to ask again, they're contracted employees, we try to ask them to check tags, but sometimes somebody will drive a Haralson County vehicle but have a Carroll County driver's license. So, I don't quite understand how that works, but, there are ways, again, short of having somebody at every gate, it's hard to police that kind of thing. And again, I don't think it happens a lot of places. Several of them, the more rural ones, I know at Tyus, we have a sign. The ones that are closest to the Alabama line, we have a sign that says that they're for Carroll County residents only. So we do our best. And trust me, if I'm ever there and there's an Alabama tag there, I don't hesitate to check their driver's license, because I'm just that person. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jacqueline. I'm now going to call on the Finance Director, Alicia Searcy, to present our update for the month ending September 30th.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. We ended September in a good position. We're a quarter of the way through the year, and we've recognized about 16% of our revenue. Our expenses are still in that 24+%. So we're still under our budget slightly as far as our expenses are concerned. Our revenue collections are a little above last year as far as a percentage of our budget, but not a lot. I mean, we're really moving in a good direction as far as that's concerned. Our cash balances are staying about the same as they were comparatively year over year from one month to the next. So I think our financial position is in good shape. We are in the midst of working on some ARPA projects and the federal government still has not given us any final guidance, so we're still dealing with the interim final rule, as they call it. And we've had a lot of projects that have been brought forth, and so we're working to try to make sure that if we bring those to you, that those will be within the scope and the guidelines that the Treasury Department has set forth. So the Finance Department's been working on that to a great degree. And working with Carroll County Water Authority and working on their agreement and how we're going to handle that funding and moving forward with those projects. So we're staying pretty busy.
Any questions?
Ms. Searcy, as you stated, the report looks very good. I did have a few questions, specific line item questions. Under expenditures, I had noticed that there's not a posting on a payment for debt service yet for year to date.
Yes. Last year was the first year that we started making the payments on the DFAX lease purchase. And so we made that, the first payments due within a few days of the end of the month. So you actually have to process that invoice in one year and then pay it in the next. And so we ended up at the end of last year having an accounting accrual that will adjust out every year. So when you look at last year compared to this year, it looks like we're missing a payment. But then at the end of the year, that'll be brought back in. So
Okay. Under revenues, our occupational tax looked like it had decreased a little over $120,000 year to date.
Last year was, as you know, we were getting into our situation with COVID, and the federal government had extended the time that the income tax returns were due, and our occupational tax is based on income tax. So we delayed the need to report those occupational taxes until July. So some of the money from the year that ended 2020 actually got paid in 2021. So we saw an uptick in July of last year that we won't experience again unless we delay those payments like we did for that COVID period.
Okay. And I noticed building permits up $109,000 over prior year to date. That's really good. That's continuing to hold or improve steadily. Park fees up $35,000 year to date. I know we made some substantial investments there, so that's good to see that our revenues continue to increase over prior year. Other charges, and this may be a lot, I'm not looking for a lot of detail, but our our other charges for services were up about 120,000 over prior year to date. Could you just touch very briefly on that?
Well, a part of that are the inspection fees that we do for some of the municipalities' building inspections. And the building in the Temple area has been very good. And so we've seen about a $10,000 increase in the first quarter of payments from Temple to help with their building inspections. And then we've seen an uptick in the copy fees over at the clerk of court. And I don't know exactly what that's related to, but I'm guessing that it has to do with real estate and real estate closings and the increase there. And then we've seen an increase in the medical expenses from the CI, and the sheriff salary reimbursements up $34,000. I believe that's related to the fact that they did not have resource officers in the school during part of COVID while the schools were closed anyway, and so now school's back open. I think we've got those resource officers back in there, and the schools are compensating us for doing that.
Okay. And those are all great things, but just
Oh, yeah.
when those numbers are high too, even if it's in the good for us, like to kind of know where that's being generated from. The last question under schedule of cash balances, it looks like the 2020 numbers, I'm wondering if this is a timing issue. 19 and 21 are kind of correlating together, but the 20 number on cash balance looked like an entire maybe pay period was sitting there. Is that a timing issue?
That's correct. We're on a 26 pay period schedule over the year. So twice a year we have 3 pay periods that land in 1 month. And last year that landed in October. So on October 1, we had a payroll. Well, that payroll had to be funded September the 28th or 29th. And so we funded it at the end of September. That money was in the bank, and then it came out of the payroll account on October 1st when we made payroll.
Okay. Everything looks good. Thank you so much for the details.
You're welcome.
I have a couple questions, or 3 or 4 maybe. Hopefully make these quick. I noticed on the revenue side, which really doesn't concern me as much, but the intergovernmental on the general fund, which is like an overall summary, this year to date was like 423,000 something, and the prior year was 43,000 something. I didn't know what might make up that roughly 380,000 difference in the intergovernmental revenues.
Well, that's going to be your grants.
I got you.
So,
Okay, good. Going down the general fund lines, of course, that's a summary of expenditures, so I went from there. If I had any questions, I dug in a little bit to the detail, but I had just 3 or 4 questions there. On risk management, this year to date's 896, roughly 897,000. Last year was 805,000 roughly. So when I went to the detail, it looks like liability insurance and auto insurance both are expenditures greater than 90% of the budget already, and overall then about 64% of the budget has been expended already. And you would think roughly about 25%, since we're 25% through the year. So I didn't know.
We pay our insurance on an annual basis, so the
So
biggest
both of those.
portion of the insurance payment. Now, there are some things that we do pay for throughout the year. You've got some bonds and a few other small things that we will pay for through the year. And then if we have any additions, like if we took a $60,000 car or a $40,000 car off and put a $60,000 car on, there's going to be a bump in the premium on that throughout the year. But the majority of our premiums are paid in August. So when we do that renewal in August, then we pay those premiums at that point. So a majority of risk management should be expended at this point in time.
Okay. Property tax appraisal, 233,000 last year, 380,000 roughly this year. So when I went to the detail, I noticed contractual services, overall, it's about 33% of the budget instead of the anticipated 25. For contractual services, about 90,000 of 98,000 budgeted is already expended or encumbered. So I didn't know, I remember us dealing with some
We've
things
got
were-
the aerial flyover that we
Uh-huh.
agreed to take out of some money from last year, and that
Yeah.
invoice wasn't actually presented until this year, so we'll have to do a budget amendment to increase that budget
Okay.
line. But it was money that we agreed to expend on the aerial flyover.
Okay, all right. Probate court, overall, just 27% of the budget expended, which is right in line. But I noticed, compared to last year, 70% increase. So when I went to the detail, I noticed salaries and temporary labor line items were already at 37% and 50% of the budget. So it seems like a labor kind of thing there. I didn't know what might be going on.
Well, there's a couple of things that are going on there. We've got a very high demand on the probate court. In fact, that was one of the applications for some ARPA money that she had submitted, and she's getting some more detail together for justification of that. But for the amount of cases that she's putting through, she's understaffed, and she has a backlog that came as a result of COVID. So she's trying to deal with that, and part of that is utilizing some temporary labor and trying to get help there. The other part of that is that the positions that are funded by the grant were not staffed during the first quarter of last year. So, in the mental health grant. So that's what I'm referring to. So we had just gotten the big amount of grant money for the mental health advocates, and they were adding staff during the first quarter of last year, but they had not fully staffed that. So now they've got all of their staffing in place. And their program's fully functional at this point. So they've got their counselors in place, and the contractual services, I think you'll see, or the program expense, you'll see that line item up from last year too.
Okay,
So that's the other part of that.
okay. That's all. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you. Now we're going to go ahead and move into the review and discussion of our meeting on Tuesday. Financial session 9.1, the Sheriff's Office Capital Project Vehicle Request. We are removing that. Cars are not available. You can't get quotes. So that one will be coming off. So we only have, what'll be 9.2 will become 9.1, which is the Sheriff's Office Equipment Request. And we do have Brad Robinson, our Chief Deputy Sheriff, here to discuss that item.
Can I ask a question?
Oh. Sure.
On the cars, is there anything available in the future that they told you? Or
Well, Ken Reeves is checking almost every day to see if the prices are available. I didn't want to come up here and ask for last year's price and have to come back for an amendment. Last year's about $355,000 for 10 cars, fully equipped. This year, I'm hoping minimal increase, but we don't know at this time, so I thought rather than come up here and then have to recome later for an additional fund, we'd just take it off.
are you locked into a certain model, or?
We're trying to
I
get
know
the
you like the big
2022s. We checking, as far as the police package on any 2021s, there's not any available.
Oh, okay. Is that going to impact you very much?
Well, we're still doing, I'm not going to say really well right now, but we are still doing somewhat well. We've been able to keep our fleet maintained and keep them on the road.
Okay.
One thing that's helped us quite a bit, you know, we got 3 vehicles from that Governor's Office of Highway Safety grant. So those 3 vehicles has helped us some.
You know about how long it might be, Brad, before?
I do not. I was actually putting it on the agenda hoping it would be by now, but when it didn't come as of the last day or two, I mean, we decided we'd take it off and we'll try again next month.
We certainly want you on the road.
Well, I appreciate
Whatever
that.
it takes,
I appreciate that. But the reason I'm here today is talk about a device that I'm going to request some funds for. And as you well know, that drugs is a big thing here. I mean, almost the root of every problem we deal with seems to have some sort of a drug initiative somewhere, whether it's stealing or homicides or something. There's usually some type of drug involved. But one of the biggest issues we have is safety of handling the drugs that we find. This device is called TrueNarc. It's one of the only devices I've seen out there. It's been in operation, this particular device, for about 8 years. I talked with the company. Their company has been in existence for about 15 years, dealing with the military a lot on some other issues, not necessarily drugs, but explosives and so forth. But this device is called TrueNarc. And what it does is it can go in and verify what substance we're looking at, and it has in its, memory of over 300 type of substances. What we come in contact with today is not what I came in contact with when I was on patrol 20, 25 years ago. I would be frightened to be out there trying to package evidence and handle the narcotics that's out there today. As you know, you may have heard in the news, may not have, earlier this week, a couple of our officers got involved with a vehicle stop, found over 100 grams of meth, and there was some heroin as well. So being able to identify some of those substances while they're out in the field sometimes is going to be very important. One of the biggest problems that we have are some of these drugs like fentanyl that is so dangerous that if you absorb in your skin, it could be deadly. So that happened with a deputy about a month and a half ago, as one of our officers did come in contact with some drugs that was laced with fentanyl, and of course they had to do an IV with Narcan. He's fortunately very, very good today, recovered very quickly, but I think this $25,000 piece of equipment, if it could save or protect one life, it'd be well worth it. So that's what I'm asking for. Is it's not a ton of money, but I understand it's quite a bit for a piece of equipment. Our local narcotics task force here with the GBI, they've had this same device for about 2 years, and I've talked with them and saw it in operation, and they said they love it. So they're called from other jurisdictions to actually test the drugs there. So we're going to keep it locked up in a stored area at the sheriff's office, accessible to the supervisors, and if they're on the scene and looking to package some narcotics, we'll have it carried to the field. And of course, we'll take it to any search warrants that we're on.
Any questions for Brad?
Chief, the only question I had is I noticed in the document it said I think it comes with a 2-year warranty, and I'm the warranty guy. I don't necessarily think we need to buy everything, but I always like to look at that, and I just want to make sure you felt, as far as an extended warranty, if they even offered it. And of course, the technology probably would change a lot in a 2-year period, but I just want to make sure you felt comfortable with what it's coming with.
Well, I do, and I feel more comfortable because before I came here today, I actually called the sales rep to see about any additional warranty, and he said he was going to throw in 2 additional years free, so we'll get 4 years warranty on this device.
That's great.
Okay.
The only question I had was, I saw the 20 kits, and I envisioned each one of the kits going out with deputies when they're, and I'm thinking, well, 20 may not be enough, so
Right.
that was my only question.
I think our budget, we can afford additional kits. We'll just see how that goes. I don't think I'd have to come back to ask for kits on a monthly basis. I hope we don't use 20 in a month, but we'll see how that goes. But they're not that expensive. I just thought as a package deal, they would come with the device.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Are y'all good with putting this on a consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Now we'll move on to 10, our business session, and I would like to present Jacqueline Bridges as a consideration to represent Carroll County on the Community Action for Improvement Board, to fill, as our public member, fill in the unexpired term of Brandolyn Mark Marenko, who had to step down for some personal reasons. I included her bio in the agenda, and if there's, if y'all are okay with that, I put that on consent agenda.
I think she's a great choice.
Great, thank you. So at this time, on Tuesday, just a quick, let you know we have our approval of the agenda, approval of the amendments, the minutes. We'll have public comments, we'll have the special presentation where we'll be swearing in our new county fire rescue chief. So I hope you'll have the opportunity to meet him that night. And then we'll have these 2 items on consent. There is no planning and zoning, so it's feast or famine with us lately. So be prepared for December. If there is no other business, I'd like a motion to adjourn the work session.
Motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Great. All those in favor? Any opposed? What was the count, Donna? How many?